Hello, bonjour, white, hello everyone. We are in the new webinar format if you haven't joined us before for this season. So as we listen to the lovely spring sounds of birdsong and our sort of invisible waterfall of people dive in, 230 and counting. So welcome to each and every one of you. I hope you can see the joy in our faces, and we imagine it's with you too. So my name's Jade. I'm a part of the team at the Outdoor Learning Store. We're a North American wide, spring stream coming in. Wonderful. I'm actually going to do a little gentle 80s fade out as we continue on. So thank you everyone for joining. I'm Jade. I'm here with the Outdoor Learning Store. So we're a North American-wide charitable social enterprise offering outdoor learning tools, equipment and resources, and supporting other educational nonprofits. We work closely with Take Me Outside. They're our partners in delivering this workshop. Today, I join you from the traditional and unceded territories of the Snaiks people. They speak the Inselshin language, and white Yaya Sweet is how I can say hello to everybody today in that language. I'm alongside the Columbia River in interior British Columbia, and I feel like acknowledgements, and when I speak to my Indigenous mentors, should be in the moment and what speaks to you. And because this workshop is all about nature activities for year-round learning, my thought today was how things have shifted, and we were talking behind the scenes about how things are shifting where we are. So I wonder if you might want to take a moment, and in the chat, which, by the way, if you hit the more button at the bottom and chat, you can hit the little blue box and it says either everyone or host and panelists. Hit everyone so we can all see your words. And rather than just typing in your Indigenous sort of territory, could you share one thing about your place that's changed recently and your feeling about it, whether it's spring buds coming out or a particular type of plant that you see, or a change in mood, or the weather? And just let's see everyone sort of sharing for a moment. Oh, rain and cherry. Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining. And where I am is also cherished and stewarded and has been hunted and fished and gathered upon by the Secwepemc, Shuswap Lakes people, the Okanagan Silks and the Tanaha First Nations as well. So I send my love and respect to each and every one of those Indigenous groups. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for your lovely waterfall of words. So with that, we believe that outdoor and environmental learning has to be connected to the land. And so I can offer up that we have the most incredible Indigenous learning opportunity coming up, and I have a special picture I'll share with you in the chat, which for some reason this didn't update, but we've just confirmed all of the speakers. So it opens May 1st. It then runs from October to June, so the next school year, and there's this most amazing opportunity for self-directed online learning. And then also once a month there'll be a live virtual gathering with our Indigenous mentors related to different sort of topics in those modules. So we'd really love to have you enjoy and join us for that. So we'll pop the link in the chat for you. And with that, I'll pass it over to you, Steph.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm just going to put the link to nativeland.ca in the chat if you're interested in learning more about the people whose land and which you are on. And I am calling in today from Snaiks territory. I'm usually, if you've been sticking around for these webinars for a bit, I'm calling in from Kawartha territory, but I'm making my way slowly to the Outdoor Learning Conference, which is happening next week. And I hopefully, if any of you recognize my face when I'm there in person, please come say hi. Be lovely to see some of you all. So I'm the program coordinator for Take Me Outside, and I'm also representing 70 plus outdoor learning partners taking part and helping support in these wonderful workshop series that we can continue to offer free to all of you. It's so lovely to have you all here, almost 400 of you. And I'm going to pass it back to Jade so we can get started here.
Thank you so much, Steph. Always a pleasure. And yeah, the birds are singing, and we're filled with joy, and we're so glad that you're joining us. And we couldn't do this without our partners and supporters. These are our international partners, our US partners doing phenomenal work in environmental education. And on our, we'll put the link in the chat on our partners page. It links to each of their websites, so they might have amazing resources or resource banks or programming that's really tailored for you. So dive in. These are the first page of our Canadian partners and our second, and we're so grateful for each and every one of them and the work that they're doing. Okay, just before I dive into really introducing Jacob, just a couple of pieces of housekeeping. Okay, use the chat, please, or the Q&A. We are collecting everything and we'll pose it to Jacob at the end of his presentation. We'll have time for a Q&A. Closed captions, you can hit the more button at the bottom of your screen and ask to see captions, and that will allow you to get a transcript live of what's going on. If you doesn't work for you, you can hide that as well in that more thing. Yes, please set your chat to everyone rather than just hosts and panelists, so especially when we do the quiz at the end. So we'll have presentation, Q&A, prizes with a quiz. We need to be able to see it, but we'll only see ones that if you put it to everyone, then everyone will see who's been first. You'll be able to access a recording of this workshop, a discount code, and a certificate of attendance. It's in a link, it's in a follow-up email. Please check your spam. If you don't see it by noon tomorrow, you can email me, but it sometimes goes in there through our mass email sender, because there's 2,500 people registered for this workshop. We've got 400 people live, and it's just really mind-blowing. Okay, and I'm going to just get started and introduce Jacob. So, you know, the Book of Nature Connection is one. If you are leaning into different ways that you can build outdoor learning practices, this is the most beautiful way to connect to senses. For all ages, I'm using this with adults, I'm using it with young kindergarteners. It's really phenomenal. There's also the Big Book of Nature Activities, which goes through seasonal opportunities and provides these sort of year-round learning opportunities. And I know that Jacob is going to dive in and share all of these for us. So Jacob is a nature sommelier, award-winning educator, and the executive director of Camp Kawartha, which is a summer camp and outdoor education centre. He's also an instructor in environmental education at Trent University. He's taught more than 100,000 students and is co-author of the 2 books I just shared with you, and just an incredibly knowledgeable person. So excited to have you share with us. Hello, Jacob.
Well, thank you so much. And how nice it is that everybody gave up their Tuesday evening to be with me. And I hope it's worthwhile. I'll do my best. And to start with, let me share my screen. I'm speaking with you from the Mississauga-Williams Treaty 20 here in Peterborough, Ontario. And I'm not technically that savvy. Hopefully you can see this. Okay, can you?
Sorry, couldn't get my thing. I do see it, but if you hit the yes, there we go. We're rocking. Right.
Hey, when I was a kid, I hated sitting down at a desk looking at the chalkboard. I yearned to move. I yearned to do things. So I'm going to try to give you just a whole host of different activities that you can use throughout the seasons of the year. I have 75 slides and half an hour to cram them in, so I'm going to do my best. One thing I love us to think about is that while we are in different places, while we're hunched over a glowing screen, we are connected, sort of in the same way that trees are connected through their roots. Some people refer to the tree connections through their roots as the wood wide web. Well, we're on the web. So just reach out to either side to sort of recognize the fact that you are linked to the people beside you, above you, around you, everywhere. We are linked. And that's a lovely thing. And we're all engaged in good work, the idea of connecting children to nature, to the great outdoors. I sometimes say to my teachers, if I'm an outdoor educator, what are you? Are you an indoor educator? Well, you can just open up the classroom door and get outside and welcome the outdoors as part of your learning. I was really inspired by this quote. Seaman Uganda, a Kenyan youth worker, once asked, instead of what kind of world we're leaving for our kids, we should ask, what kind of kids are we leaving for our world? And that informs a lot of the work that I do. Here's a story I'd like to share with you. A little while ago, a principal friend of mine was walking to school. And as he was walking, he noticed a bird skittering across the driveway. And kids noticed it too. And they said, Mister, what is that? Now, being a wise educator, he said, well, let's go look it up, even though he knew what it was. So they flipped through a field guide and found out it was a killdeer. And then they noticed that, well, killdeers nest on the ground. And one sharp-eyed kid noticed there was a little hollow scoop and 4 speckled eggs. And they said, wow, this killdeer is raising young in our parking lot. So immediately they ran out and grabbed flagging tapes and posts and made sure cars didn't run over it. And this wise principal gave the kids binoculars. And pretty soon they were enthralled as they came back day after day, the killdeer sitting on her nest, sometimes using the broken wing trick to lead predators away from the eggs. And over time, the eggs hatched out. There were little nestlings and they fledged. By the time that was done, there's no way any kids would have let any danger, anything happen to that killdeer. It became their killdeer. It revealed herself to them. And it became known. And that's such a lovely way to think about connecting to nature, is building relationships. And so as we move through this presentation, think about how you can strengthen the relationship that you and the kids you teach or the people that you're involved in can more deeply connect to the land, the water, the air around them. And like any relationship, what does it take? It takes mindfulness, hard work, compassion, gratitude, empathy, reciprocity. I'm sure you'll come up with others and feel free to put them in the chat. But if we can think about our connection to the natural world as a relationship that needs to be strengthened and nurtured, then I think that's the beginning of fostering stewardship. So some things we can think about is taking kids to the same place over and over again. So we build intimacy with that space, that we personalize and animate the landscape. So we don't turn it into an object, but we think about it as a living entity that has a right to exist. And a lovely quote from the Geography of Childhood: to really appreciate something, it helps to look into every face, recognizing that that chickadee in that tree is unique, as is the tree, as is the heart-shaped hole halfway up the trunk. And you occupy a unique perspective in nature that no one else shares. You see the world from a completely unique vantage point. So savor it, share it, use the language of wonder and awe, because so often we objectify nature and use very static language, but say, isn't it amazing? Isn't it marvelous? And help kids to see that too. So one thing, just thinking about that quote, sometimes in environmental educators, they're well-meaning, and what they're focused on is reducing harm. And that needs to be done for sure. But reducing harm is not the same as doing good. It's kind of akin to me hitting someone in the head with my fist and then saying, okay, you know what? I'm just going to not hit you quite as hard. We need a different kind of world, one that's infused with nature and is regenerative. So let's think about, instead of, just turning off lights and reducing our carbon footprint, to bring nature back to our built areas so that everywhere we look, there's nature around us. Well, phenology, a lovely word. It trips off the tongue. What does it mean? It means seasonal change and appreciating seasonal change. So a while ago, I wrote the book, the big book of nature activities with my friend Drew Monkman, who's now retired. Go for a walk with Drew. It takes you an hour to go 100 meters because he's always stooping down, finding something interesting that he never noticed before. It might have been a cool looking flower, but he knows the names and the stories behind each one of those things. I wonder if sometimes by abdicating our knowledge to our devices, we're missing something. He has what I call embodied knowing, the knowing that it's taken a while to collect in his head, but also in his heart and his body. So there is something wonderful about remembering the names of things. In Anishinaabe, they say naming something is when you recognize it, it calls to you. So let's think about remembering names, but also remembering the story and the character behind those names. Now, the book is divided into all kinds of different sections, from learning about what's going on in nature in your region to learning some sensory things that are going on, what the colors are like, what the sounds are like, what the feeling is like. And here are a bunch of activities that you'll find in the book. First of all, we'll start with autumn. In many ways, autumn kind of feels like the new year. It is the end of all the vibrancy, the great things that are going on in summer. It's almost like nature is exhaling and going into a rest. And one of the signature sounds of the fall, of course, are crickets. And here's a lovely word for you to use at your next cocktail party: striatulation. Striatulation, what is that? Well, crickets have one section of their wing part that's a little ridged and the other that's smooth, file on a scraper, and when they rub them against each other and arc their wings, out comes a nice. Different species of crickets have different patterns of chirruping. You've got the Allard's ground cricket, pretty quick, the snowy tree cricket, which I'll talk about in a moment, and other kinds of crickets too, and they'll be different from where you are. And I don't know whatever happened to my presentation, but I'm going to try to find out. Sorry about that.
We still see it.
Okay, I don't. Now I do. Here's a cool thing. Did you know there's a thermometer cricket? Yes, it's the snowy tree cricket. And what you do is you count the number of chirrups in 8 seconds and add 5, and you'll get a pretty accurate reading of the temperature in Celsius. I'm going to see if I can show you what it sounds like. I should have challenged you to say, what was the temperature based on that? There's my acorn whistle. You can take an acorn cap and just holding it the way that this person does, blow across it, and you'll get a sharp ear-piercing whistle. How fun is that? If kids are running amok and you need to call them in, whistle them in with an acorn whistle. Mushroom prints. Did you know that mushrooms can create art? That's right. All you got to do is take the cap of a mushroom with the gills, put it on a white piece of paper, take an empty glass and put it on top, and that's so that the spores don't drift in any air currents, and just let her sit for 24 hours. And then carefully remove the cup and the cap, and you'll have this beautiful print that's made by the mushrooms. Now, mycologists who study mushrooms can tell you sort of what the species of mushroom is by the pattern of the print and the color of the spores, but it makes for great art. In the fall, you can catch a spider's web. That's right, spiders have spinnerets, and they can send out webbing, and some can be thicker, some can be thinner, some can be sticky, some can be non-sticky. And the orb weaving webs, they create beautiful patterns, and you can capture that. So make sure there's no spider on it. Simply take a black piece of construction paper and gently push it against it, spray with a little bit of hairspray, and boom, you've captured the spider's web. Just incidentally, many spiders will eat their own web so they can regain the proteins and the energy that's in there. Lovely. One thing I challenge kids, I say, how is it that there are plants growing everywhere, but plants can't move? How do those plants get there? Well, of course, they get there by seeds traveling. And one way they travel is by stick-ons, Klingons. So what a fun thing to do is take some old wool socks, put them right over your shoes, or put them even over your arm and go for a walk in a field and see what sticks. And then study it under a magnifying glass and find out, is it little hairs, little hooks? How does it work? In fact, the person who invented Velcro carefully studied a burr one time, came up with the idea. Oh, speaking about seeds, the delicate plumes of milkweed and of goat's beard. Take a look, study it, and then release them and watch them dance on the wind. If you want, you can create a seed race where you give everybody a few seeds, and the challenge is to blow them as far as they can. Works best when there isn't much wind, or works well inside. Here's one I love doing. If we had more time, I would say go grab a leaf And then we work through a little bit of sequence of questions. So try to remember these sequence of questions. And it doesn't just have to be leaves. It could be anything in nature. I always start by saying, hey, do you know that famous detective, what's his name? Oh yeah, Sherlock Holmes. His sidekick, Watson, was always perplexed that Holmes knew how to solve mysteries. So he'd ask Holmes, how did you do it? How did you solve that murder? To which Holmes would reply, my dear Watson, you see, but you do not notice. So it is in that spirit that we get kids to grab a leaf. And then we say, I want you to finish this following sentence. I notice that. So for example, I notice that my leaf ends in a tip. I notice the edge of my leaf are sawtooth or serrated. I notice that my leaf is sort of darker colored on one side, lighter on the other. I notice my leaf has more pronounced veins on the back. I notice my leaf has holes in it. So get them to really notice. The next in the sequence is wondering. So start with the statement, I wonder. I wonder why my leaf is green. I wonder why it's shaped the way it is. I wonder where this leaf came from. What kind of tree did it come from? I wonder why the stem is shaped the way it is. And after they've done a fair amount of wondering, you can move into the sequence. It reminds me of. Oh, this leaf reminds me of the fact that, seasons are ephemeral and it will fall off the tree and turn into soil. It reminds me of other things that are green, from grass to moss. It reminds me that leaves can make their own food. How cool is that? So that sequence is lovely because number one, it encourages observation. Number two, the observation leads to wondering. And when we wonder, then we also are developing relationships between things. So if you think about it, the engine of learning, what inspires learning, is that also important word, curiosity. And what as educators can we do to stimulate, engage, and keep a child's curiosity going? A lot of it has to do with questioning strategies. And so when you're going for a walk, well, sometimes this is the sequence I hear. Hey, mister, what kind of bird is that? That's a robin. It kind of ends there. What a pity. There's so many more questions that could be asked. Well, take a look at that robin. Do you see how it's hopping on two legs and then walks? See how it cocks its head? See how it then quickly probes into the earth and grabs an earthworm? Oh, see how it flies by flapping? There are two different kinds of questions. One is more open-ended inquiry where kids ask questions and try to find the answers. And the other is directed inquiry where you help them to develop questions. But every question is precious. And there is an answer to every one of those questions. Some science knows, some science doesn't, but maybe one day we'll find out the answer to, maybe they'll find out the answer to. But keep those questions going, keep the curiosity going and the wonder going. Oh, hey, you can create leaf animals. Just look online. It's so fun. Or stained glass windows. It is really amazing the way light plays through the different colors in leaves. You just simply take leaves and wax paper, and then the most colorful ones, arrange them in a nice pattern and iron them. Just make sure the kids maybe aren't using the iron until the wax melts. And simply take that and put it against a window where the sun is shining through. And you'll be amazed. It'll be like a stained glass window where you see in a church. I want everyone to grab a handful of sunlight. I want you to cram it in your mouth, chew, swallow. That's what you call a light snack. Okay, we humans don't eat sunlight. But trees and plants make their food from sunlight. We forget how amazing that is. They absorb carbon dioxide. Let's say it again. They absorb carbon dioxide in a world which has so much carbon in it. And they take that sun's energy and they release oxygen. At the same time, they transpire water. And they make food for themselves. How cool is that? And then they grow. And then they make that sun's energy, that food, available for other living things. Kids don't believe you that trees release moisture, water. Take a plastic bag on a sunny day, a transparent one, tie it to a branch and leave it for a few hours. And it'll begin to collect water. A mature tree can transpire, release 3,000 liters of water in one day. What it does, it moistens the air, it lowers the temperature, it makes water available for other living things. They are natural air conditioners, they anchor the soil, they uptake carbon. And in a way, wouldn't it be nice if we all were a little more like trees? In other words, we did more good than harm. And so maybe that's a question you can ask kids at the end of the day. What'd you do today? Did you do more good than harm? I hope so. Oh, hey, do tree tag. Go to a field and help them get to know a few different types of trees, and then say, hey, you're safe if you touch cedar, or you're safe if you touch ash, and then run around and have them run around. And that way it reinforces the names of the trees. And remember, a name is a beginning part, start of a character in a story. Make sure the kids get to know more of that character. Oh, that cedar is rich in vitamin C. Its wood doesn't rot. It provides a lot of food for squirrels and other living things. Leaf chromatography, what? Well, did you know that packed in a leaf, there's chlorophyll, the green chlorophyll that helps that tree to make sugar and make food, but there's other types of pigments in there as well. There's the anthocyanins, which are the reds, carotenoids, which are the orange, the xanthophylls, which are the yellows, but they're masked by the green. But take green leaves and put them in some rubbing alcohol and blend it up, and then take some coffee filters and just leave them for a little while, strips of coffee filters, and those different pigments will migrate up the leaf. And you'll show that those pigments are there all along, just masked by the green. Oh, math. Jacob was never very good at math. When I am enthralled by the Fibonacci sequence, Fibonacci sequence has been known by ancient societies for over 1,000 years, but it was made famous by an Italian Fibonacci who discovered the secret. And basically, it's logarithmic. So it starts with 0, and then there's 1. The two previous numbers, when added together, yield the third number. So 0 plus 1 is 1, 1 plus 2 is 3, 3 plus 5 is 8, and so on. What it does, it generates a spiral. That doesn't seem like much, but if you think about it, so much of nature is based on a spiral. And you can go on a Fibonacci hunt, a scavenger hunt. You can find things like the arrangement of scales on a pine cone, or the curling of a fern, or how the seeds of a sunflower are packed into the head of a sunflower, or even a storm. So many things are based on that, the Fibonacci sequence. How many of you have gone for a walk and actually seen faces in trees? I do that all the time. And you really see trees in a new way. It personalizes them. It brings them to life. So go see if you can find some faces as you walk. I love tracking and trailing, but you can do tracking and trailing in the fall when there's no snow. And here's a fun game in an area that you know it's okay because there's been a fair amount of impact. Take a log, put some screws in, tie a rope around it, and then drag it. And at the very end, maybe 100 meters away, and you drag it in a sort of a circuitous route, you hide a little stuffed animal. It might be a little squirrel or rabbit or whatever you have. And then take the log away and see if kids can follow the trail. And if they're good at that, you can have another log that has a lot less screws in it. And that's much like tracking an animal. When an animal's claw brushes against the ground, there are little scratch marks, flipped over leaves. So you can begin to learn to follow an animal track even when there's no snow by looking at those subtle signs. In the fall, try this. In fact, do it now. No one's around. They won't hear you. But go, psh, 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 psh. It's called pishing. And in the fall, when birds are migrating and I pitch and I hide underneath an evergreen tree and stay really still, I'll have as many as 60 chickadees and nuthatches around me and other kinds of birds, kinglets. And they're really attracted to that sound. In fact, it's an alarm call for them and they want to go and investigate. And you'll be a bird whisperer. You'll be calling birds to you. How fun is that? What do you do with your leftover pumpkin? Turn it into a bird feeder. Have a stale apple, stick some sunflower seeds in it, hang it up. Those are just some activities for the fall. But let's think about winter. Such a great time of year. You know, that's when the color palette changes. And instead of having the beautiful hues of gold and yellow and orange, we now have more subtle hues of gray and brown and white. Beautiful in its own way. And different sounds too. The snow muffles it a little bit. Sometimes you hear the chattering of birch leaves for some reason stay on the tree all winter long. Yeah, the great exhale, getting ready, resting for spring. What can you do in wintertime? Why, if it's snowing, you can catch the snowflake. How do you do it? Take a black Bristol board. If you can laminate it, great. Don't have to, but make sure it stays outside and it's cold. And make sure a snowflake lands on it. If you have a magnifying glass, take a look. And if conditions are right, you'll see the most beautiful crystals. And I invite you to go to snowcrystals.com, where they have pictures of actual snowflakes. You can see stellar dendrite crystals, hexagonal plates, these beautiful structures. And you can even teach the kids about how scientists categorize snowflakes. And what I will do is I will laminate a whole bunch of different types of actual pictures of snowflakes, and we'll have a relay race, and they have to try to put it in the right category as a way to reinforce it. But do open your eyes to the magic of snow crystals. Here's another challenge you can do. I fill up little old film canisters, but it could be any tiny container of really hot water. Then we measure the temperature. It might be 40 degrees Celsius. Then I say, okay, go use materials and make a nest. Because how is it that even if the temperature drops to -30 and -40, animals stay warm? Of course, many of them make nests or find cavities. And what we do is once we've made a little bit of a nest using natural materials, we'll slip our little canister inside. And what I do, unbeknownst to them, is I slip a little canister inside a real mouse nest. And then we wait an hour or so. We go and fetch them, we measure the temperature. And I see how they did compared to a real mouse nest. Sometimes I'll even bury one under the fluffy snow and show how snow can act like a beautiful insulator. Ice candles, yes, you can make those. All you do is you fill a balloon up with water, tie it, put it outside overnight, and in the morning, you peel away the balloon and punch out the top or the bottom, whatever one's easiest. The water will drain out, and you have this beautiful crystal container. You can stick a candle in there. Or based on the work of Andy Goldsworthy, you can create amazing snow sculptures. Snow lends itself to all kinds of forms. Here's just a few things Andy has done. Andy is this wonderful artist from Great Britain who goes out just using his hands. He makes sculptures in all seasons of the year, and winter too. And then he takes a picture of it and lets nature reclaim. So here's some different sculptures he's created, from breathing icicles together to also when you breathe on ice, it sticks. He's made a little ice cube, ice circle or sphere. Here's a hint you might not have known. You can create beautiful snow sculptures even when the snow is cold. How do you do it? Take recycling bins, pack them full of snow, just ram it, leave it overnight. What will happen is the crystals will sinter. That means they'll coalesce. And the next day you flip it over, give the kids spoons or really dull edged things, and they can carve away and get the most amazing carvings. And it is a great substrate to carve once it's sintered. Here's a traditional Haudenosaunee game called snow snakes, and you can do a little bit of research into it. Traditionally, snow snakes were played in the winter. Often they would go onto a frozen lake. They would take a stick and they'd rub it in sand and then coat it with different oils and sometimes even wax it. Sometimes they would curl the nose, dangle feathers, and send it flying. You can make snow snakes, but I encourage you to find out more about the traditional First Nations that are on your territory. See if you can talk to an elder, a guide, just to make sure that this is appropriate. But kids love making things that slide across the snow. And a good snow snake on an icy conditions can go 100, 200 sliding along. Frozen mandalas. You can tell that I really love art because I'm so inspired by the beauty of forms in art. Take bits of nature, little leaves, moss, twigs, and put them in a container, let them freeze overnight. If you want, stick a little twig in, and then the next morning, pull it out, pull the twig out so you have a hole, and then some twine. During Christmas time, if you want, instead of having a Christmas tree for people, maybe think about decorating something for the animals. And it doesn't even have to be about Christmas. It can be about thinking about and honoring the animals themselves. You can string cranberries, cut up oranges, and come back in a few days and just see what kind of footprints are there, who visited your tree. I love acornnaturalists.com. It's where I go shopping. I also love even more the Outdoor Learning Store, but they have molds of actual feet of animals made out of rubber. What we do is we pour in fiberglass compound or plaster of Paris, and then we pull it out. We've got a track maker, and I use that to show kids the different kinds of tracks that animals make, the patterns they have. And I also get some tracking scarves. And there's a lovely poem I have, which I'd love to share with you. And I would get you to repeat after me, but hard to do right now. But I'll just do it really quickly. Starts with an S and it ends with a T. It comes out of you and it comes out of me. Now I know what you're thinking. Don't call it that. Be scientific and call it scat. Yes, animals leave footprints behind. They leave scat behind. Really, it's a story of their passing. And you can teach kids the art of reading that story, recognizing who was there. Now we're into spring, and I'm realizing I got to rush because I don't have too much time left. But spring, resurgence of life, so many different colors. You can, believe it or not, hear the sap rise if you have a stethoscope. I did this not long ago, and it kind of burbles. The tree is coming to life. The sap is coming up through the trunks. Or the green sheen challenge, just so many different colors of green out there. I use this wheel, and then we clip on little tiny pieces of green to see how close we can match. Now, I'm always referring to Robin Wall Kimmerer, talking about the honorable harvest. Make sure that we don't take the first, make sure we don't take the last, make sure that we always give gratitude, that we practice reciprocity. Kids need to engage with nature, but we always want to give more than we take. And there's some sensory scavenger wheels. I'll leave you a link. Nature weaving. Can you tell I'm going fast? Make a bird's nest, just some mud and grass, and get kids to experiment. Eggs, get some chicken eggs and boil them, and then show them ground nesting birds have eggs that are camouflaged so they can blend in. Can they do that? Can they hide their egg? Can other kids find them? We were going to do bird singing. We were going to do frog singing, but sadly, Jade, I think I'm getting close to running out of time.
You got a couple more minutes.
No, all right. Anyway, wherever you are, your frogs have a nocturnal chorus. It could be like the peepers, beep, 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 or the leopard frog, the green frog, or the toads. I get kids to play those different, and I'm the conductor, and we create a whole frog orchestra. And then I get kids to go out and see if they can count some of those different frog sounds and report back to citizen science. Raising moths, we did that. I have a little link. Tim the Moth Guy will send you little cocoons. You can raise Polyphemus. You can raise Cecropia moths. That's the Cecropia we raised and the Polyphemus. Even monarchs. Make magic butterfly goop by that recipe and just paint it on different things, and the butterflies will come by and snack on it. Over summer, we're going to do bee dancing, but that's too complicated. Hammered leaf activities, hammered flowers. If you take succulent flowers and blooms and you hammer them gently into a fabric, the imprint will stay there. Worm fiddling, yes, by taking a ridged pole and rubbing another pole against it, sticking it in the ground, the vibrations cause the worms to rise. You can catch some. Take a look at how they move. And nature arts. Kind of feel like I'm getting to the end of my presentation. Framing nature, different cutouts, just so you can see nature from a new perspective. Peeking under things, I call them basement windows. Micro trails. When I was I am a parent still, but when my kids were small, we went to a big overlook and you could see for miles, and my kids were looking at ants down by their feet. They were interested in what was right in front of them. Create a micro trail by grabbing yarn and a bunch of different tongue depressors or popsicle sticks. Each represents a point of interest. Connect them by the yarn. It'll make a little trail. You might go from a wildflower to a hole in the ground to a spider's web. Get kids to lead other people through their little nature trail that they created. And I am sorry, I am running out of time. And I created for you some resources at the very end. I hope that some of these things are useful. I know I went fast. I wanted to cram a lot in there because I'm someone who just loves to do stuff, and I hope you do too. Hope some of these will be useful to you. Anyway, I always love leaving you with this. You all know this. We're spending way too much time in front of glowing screens. There's no better connection you can get than disconnecting from the screen, allowing all your senses to be activated and literally drinking the world in so that you feel present and part of this lovely unfolding natural world. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Oh, do email me. I keep saying this in my presentations. No one ever emails me. You want an idea, you want to chat, I'd love to connect. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. I don't know if you can see all those little reactions sort of pulsing up the screen, and you kept making everyone laugh. And I know it's ridiculous to do a sort of laughing face rather than hear the laughter, but I had to check I was muted a couple of times there because I was really going for it. Yes, all of those links that you shared in that presentation are going to come in your follow-up email, everyone. So again, link to the recording of this, to a certificate of attendance and a discount code for the Outdoor Learning Store, and all of the links that Jacob have shared will be in your follow-up email. Because we're sending to such huge numbers, it comes from like a mail server, so sometimes it goes into your spam. So please check your spam. It will be there by lunchtime tomorrow. Do you know what? I've never done this before, but I'm gonna give it a go. Fran, you've got your hand up. I'm gonna allow you to talk. So come and ask your question if you like. Do you want to unmute, Fran, and share with us your question for Jacob? Or maybe not. Okay. Perhaps when the reactions happen, sometimes that there's buttons that get pressed. Okay, so a couple of people, Brittany and Menley, asked, are the activities that you just shared there in your book?
Yeah, they might not all be in one book, but they're all in both books. And I'm happy to share also the slide deck if there's a way we can do that. Yes, I can absolutely share the slide deck. I can put that into the follow-up email if that makes people happy, if you're happy to do that. Yeah. Amazing. And I just want to say there were so many, look at that, there were so many, and I can say on top of that, just the books have just a phenomenal number. I literally just go, okay, that's me sorted for my lesson today.
Tony says I can't take notes fast enough. Fair enough. That's why we record, so you can always go back and listen. Another thing I like to do is just have it playing as an audio. Sometimes if I go for a walk and then I kind of practice the activities as I'm out for a walk. So that's another way to watch it, but absorb it whilst being outside as well. So many people sharing that you brought inspiration, lots of people having really tough weeks, and that you brought a bunch of optimism and happiness to them. So thank you so much for that. It was really excellent. Vicky asked, is the scat and tracks in your book, like, do you have special activities about that?
About scat. So one activity I love doing as a way to start tracking is if there's a fresh snowfall, I'll get kids to line up facing me, and I'll say, facing that direction, and then behind them I will go and make tracks in the snow. So I might hop on one foot, I might jump, I might roll, and then I'll get them to turn around, and by looking at my tracks, tell me what I was doing. So as a way for them to understand, a track tells a story. And then I will show how humans can imitate the gaits of animals, so alternate gait walking, and then eventually I'll show them the actual footprints of animals and what to look for, and then we'll go out and discover. So I love tracking, because really it is an animal doing its own thing, and you can really find a lot of information by simply reading the tracks.
Fantastic. We also have a tracks and traces waterproof, tear-proof field guide that in the store that has scats and tracks in there as well that you can use to maybe help facilitate some of those things. Somebody asked, can you explain what you mean by nature sommelier? And if you want to hear more about Jacob and this, you can listen to our podcast. It's the Earthy Chats podcast. You get it wherever you get your podcasts. It's also on our outdoorlearningstore.com/podcast. But I'll let you explain it now. But that podcast is a really lovely one to engage with nature as well.
Yeah, it came from the idea that a sommelier loves and appreciates wine. Why do they do that? It's because they open up their senses. So they might take a glass of wine and say, oh, that looks ruby colored. And they might take a small sip and say, tastes crunchy and it's got a smooth, silky feel. In fact, if you look it up, sommeliers have over 100 different ways to describe wine. It might smell foxy. But I wondered, in a world where we spend a lot of our time hunched over screens, are we suffering from sensory anesthesia? Are our senses dull? Do we need to wake them up so we really feel more connected to the world around us? We do kids such a service by helping them to open up their senses and to drink the world in. And I do that. It's a metaphor, but it's an apt one. So they feel more deeply connected. I wonder if kids are feeling lonelier today because they don't have that visceral sense of connection to the world around them, to the life systems that nourish us. And that by using our senses, we can help rekindle, reawakening that deep needed connection we have to belong to something bigger than ourselves, to the natural world.
Beautiful. Incredibly powerful words there. And I think you're right. And it is so hard to be in this space, virtually saying, go out there, grab leaves, speak to the trees and all of these things. But of course, we've got people, I forgot to do the poll today, but we've got people from coast to coast, we've got people from the States, we've got people overseas joining us. And we can obviously reach a bigger audience. Like we couldn't have this many people every Tuesday, 400 people. It takes 2 years to plan a conference with 400 people and great expense. So it's like, I feel like it's like these sort of scales for me of balance. But when you're providing such phenomenal resources like this, and then there's the opportunity to go and take them outside and put them into practice, I think that's so powerful. Kate asks, oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, please get outdoors. If there's one thing I would encourage you to do is please get out there. Vitamin N, vitamin nature, we all need it every day. Nourish yourself and then nourish those around you. Those deep experiences.
Beautiful. Kate says, I'm going on a bug hunt next week with a large group. Maybe, Kate, you can say what age group you have. But Kate, I had asked for any suggestions on how to keep them all engaged.
On a what kind of hunt? I missed that.
A bug hunt, an insect hunt.
Yeah,
with 2 to 4 year olds. So early childhood.
Yes. So here's what I say. I say, hey, do you want to find a baby dragon, or maybe an earth-boring submarine, or a shapeshifter? Let's go see what we can find. We're going to lift up things and peek underneath. And sure enough, we'll find things like earthworms that are really kind of like earth-boring submarines. We'll find things like salamanders, which are kind of like baby dragons. But anyway, just once you've found something, take a look at it and then ask yourself, well, how does it move? How does it breathe? Why is it the color the way it is? What are its antennae for, and why is it waving them around? And so just begin those wonder questions, generating curiosity. And oftentimes, if we have little jars, every kid has a jar. We sit in a circle, and I'll do a little slide carousel show, and I'll ask a question and say, what color is it? Okay, why is that color? And then click, and everyone hands theirs over to the next. So everyone sees everyone without pandemonium and chaos ensuing. As a precursor, I might also take a bunch of a few little plastic bugs and hide them and see if we can find them, and talk about the importance of camouflage in a bug's life, which is fun too. There are bugs everywhere, and how lovely it is, sort of an underappreciated but beautiful part of nature.
Absolutely. And I do feel that sometimes, even with adults, I'll be adjacent to them and they go, oh, you know, if we talk about insect, oh, they sort of instinctively do that. And then we're just setting them up to fear and have disgust of these incredible, like, detritivores that otherwise we'd be swimming through piles of waste if they didn't break down, you know, all of the waste products that we produce in our ecosystem. So, the way you describe that as an adventure, as a story building of finding something, I think it really frames it in a way that helps build relationship and positivity connected to insects.
Yeah, and a little bit about discovery. You know, even if you know that there might be salamanders under that log, it's a profound difference between saying, oh, we're going to find salamanders under that log, let's lift it up, check it out, or I wonder what's under that log. Who owns a discovery? What a magical thing for a kid to find that. Celebrate it. And you're right, Jade, be careful about the yuck factor. So many times I've heard an outdoor educator even saying, ooh, that's gross. No, it's not. And if it makes you feel uncomfortable, say, that's interesting, or how curious. But just bite the tongue and watch the yuck factor, because kids really pick up on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that all ties into that social emotional well-being of this being a place of safety and security, rather than a place to be feared. So amazing. Okay, we've got time for, oh, sorry, I keep doing that. I just get so excited.
No, it's just fun. I say, if we want kids to be amazed and wonder, we have to use the language of amazement and wonder.
Fantastic. We're going to do one more question, and then we're going to do a little soft close. I'm going to do the quiz. Woohoo, prizes. And then if you're happy, Jacob, maybe there's just like one or two more questions. We'll just stick around for a few more minutes at the end, so we can get them all finished. Okay, Heather asks, you have great songs. Can you find the lyrics in your books?
For the scat one, yep, you can find it there. And there's poems in there too. And there's a search on the internet for nature songs. You can find lots of cool ones there.
Absolutely. I could also shout out to a friend of ours, Remy Rodin, who has amazing earth-based songs that all sing along and do actions, and they have them in English and French. And you can get him on Spotify, Remy Rodin, or he has CDs or USBs as well. So that can be pretty cool. Okay, I'm going to just say thank you again. Lim Limt in social language, thank you so much. It was incredible. It's always such a wonder to be with you. You're so invigorating. Okay, we do have the rest of the spring workshop series coming up. We've got a little gap because quite a few of us, Jacob's presenting, Stephanie's helping out, and I'm hosting the National Outdoor Learning Conference in Banff, Alberta next week. So we're taking a little break, but we're back on May the 16th for Resources for World Oceans Day. May 23rd, we're talking about race and nature for educators and equity in nature education. May 30th, we've got John Muir coming to talk about nature journaling with that curiosity, wonder and attention, same as Jacob's been sharing. And June 6th, Elder Albert Marshall and Louise Sumani are talking about walking together, two-eyed seeing with Indigenous perspectives. And then we finish with June 13th of animating outdoor learning using finger puppets, which is introduced by our Indigenous publisher, Strong Nations, Robert from Strong Nations. So excited. Thank you so much. Okay, we have prizes. So here we go. We're trying to see if we can crash the Outdoor Learning Store website again and the Take Me Outside website. So let's see how we do. If not, we might have to do a random draw again. But I'd encourage you now to go to outdoorlearningstore.com on one tab and takemeoutside.ca on another, because some of these questions, all of the questions, are going to be based around going for a bit of a scavenger hunt in the website. Okay, so typing fingers at the ready. Sorry if you can hear excitable dog in the background. Could be a bear coming past, or maybe just a squirrel. He reacts the same to both. Okay, everyone, typing fingers at the ready. Trying to look in this website. So utilizing the sort of tab on the top, how many different categories of professional learning do we offer at the Outdoor Learning Store? How many different categories of professional learning do we offer at the Outdoor Learning Store?
Scrolling. Oh, and a caveat. So just so folks know, you can type to either everybody or just hosts and panelists. And we're choosing the first one, whoever types to either of those things. But actually Pamela Cooley typed 5 and that was to everybody. So that's easy. Congrats, Pamela. We have 5 different categories of professional learning at the Outdoor Learning Store. Amazing. So send your email to me in a message, which is hosts and panelists, and let me know if you want it under US dollars or Canadian dollars for this one. Congrats,
Amazing.
Pamela.
Good luck. Yeah, so we have Indigenous learning, the 4 seasons, free virtual workshops, the Earthy Chat podcast, workshop recordings, and custom webinars. So come and enjoy all of those at your leisure. Okay, question 2. I should say as well, both of these questions are to win a $25 gift card to the Outdoor Learning Store, and then questions 3 and 4 are a $25 gift card to the Take Me Outside store, who have ethical, beautiful t-shirts and toques and nature journals.
And
All
at least one of the sites has crashed, it seems.
Oh, okay. Maybe someone got in there first. Okay. I encourage everyone, do a quick delete the web address and type it in again, outdoorlearningstore.com, and let it have a little reset. Let's try it. If it doesn't work, I'm going to do something else. So question 2, which of our outdoor learning themes features the word connections? So we have some themes on the Outdoor Learning Store. Which one features the word connections?
All right, Caroline, Lentz, curriculum. So curriculum connections, that's right, you got it.
Absolutely, alongside our other themes of connection to nature, Indigenous learning. So well done. Thank you so much. If you are looking to connect your work education to your curriculum, with broad strokes there. So there's lots of opportunity for different types of curriculum to be connected to. Okay, question 3, Take Me Outside store, here we come. How many different colours of ethically made Take Me Outside toques or beanie hats, if you're from where I am from, are available in the store? So how many different colours of Take Me Outside toques are available in the store?
Jenny Urban, 4. There are 4 lovely colours available. Congrats.
Lovely. Send Steph your email and she'll send you a virtual gift card. And last final question. If you're on the Take Me Outside website, how many different events can you see on the website event tab? There are how many different ones?
I haven't seen it yet. Victoria Sobey with 3. You got it. There are 3 different types of events on the events tab.
Congratulations.
I didn't hear that we crashed the Take Me Outside site, so that's something. Thanks for learning along with us, everybody, too.
Thank you. We're trying to see what the capacity is. Apparently 300 odd people is it. Okay. Thank you so much for participating. Again, check your spam, email recording, certificate of attendance, discount code, links to Jacob's resources. They will all be there. I just have a couple more questions for you, Jacob, that were in the chat here. Marie was asking, are your books available in French? I know it's so hard.
Yeah, how sad is that? They're not, but maybe someone wants to translate.
Send it out there into the universe.
Yeah.
See if we can get one in. Lara said, thank you, firstly. So much of this is relevant to everywhere, but do you know of a similar resource for Australia?
Oh, good question. Off the top of my head, I don't. But if someone wants to invite me down to Australia, I could do some research.
Do you volunteer as tribute to go and little professional development trip? There you go, Lara. Invite Jacob. He's ready.
Mhm.
Erica said, are the books geared towards a certain age group?
Yeah, I'd say sort of anywhere from 4 or 5 years old up to young teenagers. Yeah, and there's even some stuff for teenagers in there, but probably prime would be 6 to 12 in that area.
And Vicky was saying resources for high school with a question mark. And I know that a couple of people wrote in the chat while you were talking about that. I notice, I wonder, it reminds me of that actually it takes a little bit. They've done it with high schoolers and it takes a little bit to get in there. But when they actually get into it, it's phenomenal. And I've found that some of the things you're doing, just getting them to journal it and to sort of record it can be, you can really dive into a bit more complex with that.
Yeah, and I've done many of these activities with teenagers and adults as well. I just try to throw more information in it to make it, I teach up.
Yes, that's it, teaching up. And you talked earlier about biomimicry, right? Where animals Velcro and mimicking. And I've done phenomenal things where if you can get them to research those and then they create their own sort of presentation outside based on the species that you have where you are, and there's lots of information on the internet, then they can then present that to their fellow colleagues or students, and it becomes this sort of student-led learning experience and a research project that can sort of go on and on and on. And be very cross-curricular. So very inspirational and teach up. I love it. Okay, I'm really aware of everyone's time that you have come here after a busy day at work or life or whatever it is that you've done today. And thank you so much. Thank you for participating. Thank you for building this field. Thank you for showing the power of outdoor learning in our lives. Jacob, thank you for being a nature sommelier. Even the way you speak, it's just like a wash of spring rain under a delightful waterfall and brings joy every time that we get to spend time with you. And I can't wait to see you in person at the Outdoor Learning Conference next week.
Someone said we need a 2-hour workshop with Jacob.
Okay, thanks for the feedback. Well, maybe we could do it and we could go outside quickly, in between and come back in.
Yeah.
Leave it with us, people. Leave it with us. We've Heather, is the conference an annual event? It's the inaugural year this year, but given that we sold 450 tickets in 2 weeks and have a wait list that's 200 people long, I'm pretty certain we're going to do it again. And so we'll you can sign up at takemeoutside.ca. There's a newsletter sign up right at the top of the tab. And if you sign up to that and the Outdoor Learning Store seasonal updates, through either of them, you'll get updates about outdoor learning conferences. People would love to spend the day with you, Jacob, and it is true. And I shall look forward to it very, very soon. Thank you, everyone. Lim Limt, Hasuka Sukin, I'm so grateful that you've been here. Cooks Jam, and we'll see you for the next one, May 16th. Take care, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Good night.
Great to be here.